do we want to move on to the Suns here? And we actually have a good comment, which I think is a leaping off point, and I'll hijack this part of the conversation too. But Stefan says, I think Suns need to spam more pick and roll. Now, here's Devin Booker is spectacular, and I have some uncomfortable questions that we're going to need to ask for other people who are not Devin Booker. They're uncomfortable probably for us, but they could spam more pick and roll. I think we're kind of seeing the limitations on a Suns team that doesn't have CP3, and everyone talked a lot about, or the idea of CP3. Everyone talked a lot about how much faster they're playing, and they are playing faster. And this is just like through the first 2 games, their average offensive possession time was 15.1 seconds. Now it's down to 13.8. They're scoring 1.19 points per offensive possession while their offense is faster compared to 1.16. It's not this huge difference. And so anyone who thought they were better off without CP3 when seeing how fucking shallow they are was out of their mind. But I think we've also, at least through the first 2 games, I think we saw more of the impact on how much pick and roll can you actually run without CP3 there. Devin Booker he's the second best passer on the team, and he's a fantastic passer. I don't know if you can spam pick and rolls, especially when the Nuggets aren't going to play drop as readily against him like they would CP3. And that's why I think you need CP3. And then we also saw the impact, as I stammered through before and didn't finish that thought, on DeAndre Ayton through not so much game 5, but like games 3 and 4, where we saw his minutes were down too. I think at least one of those he was in foul trouble, if I'm mistaken. Like he's not getting as many shots. Like that's kind of when you don't have CP3 running those actions. CP3 is important to this team. So whether he plays in game 6, whether he starts, if he does, is he coming off the bench? And the fact that the Nuggets are going to inherently drop against him because they want him, they're going to be okay with his mid-range jumpers. That's an element of your offense you need, in large part, not just because Kevin Durant's been all over the place. Your bench is, talk about all over the place. Landry Shamet comes up huge in game 4. Game 5, Josh Okogie's so bad that Landry Shamet is starting in the third quarter. I thought he did a better job than people credit. I thought the Nuggets just made better offensive adjustments where if you're going to set higher on-ball screens, those are a lot harder for Landry Shamet to navigate than if he's trying to defend Jamal Murray away from the ball or just straight up. But like, you can't count. You're trying to, do we need to play more Terrence Ross? Do we need to play more TJ Warren? I think the one of the adjustments the Suns can make is I think Torrey Craig needs to actually play. And he tweeted out something cryptic, I think, after getting basically another DMP outside of garbage time. I just don't know if they have the firepower, or depth beyond. And you could say we over romanticize depth in the playoffs when you're so reliant on these 2 guys need to be superhuman every single night, every single possession for 40 plus minutes a game. Your margin for error does not exist. And I think that's just what this series boils down to for the Suns so far. And look, let's not forget when CP3 got injured, I'm not saying this entire series will be different. Phoenix was up 8 in game 2 at the time. The tenor of the series could look completely different if he never gets injured. Injuries are part of it, especially when it comes to CP3. The Nuggets might have come back anyway. They've been great. But they're a team where they haven't even lost yet. They're headed home, and they have Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. And Devin Booker's been the single most valuable player in these playoffs, I think, just because of what he's brought defensively, maybe not so much in game 5. Like, I'm already thinking about their offseason because I feel like they desperately need to flesh out at this point, let's just be real. They need to flesh out the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th spots on this because it's what are you like? CP3 has that partial guarantee and it's basically half his salary.
Yeah,
I've long thought, no, you're going to keep it. But now I'm like, is there just a world where they waive him, stretch it, have that $5 million in the books for 3 years, and then try to give themselves flexibility on the trade market? But hey, that rests on DeAndre Ayton having actual trade value.
Right.
And does he?
Let's tie that together. So one of the most, I think on our part, certainly my part, overlooked or sort of, I don't know, misjudged angles of this postseason was Phoenix's lack of depth. Cause I've just kind of viewed it as they have Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. Like, I don't really care that's enough. Any theory of the Suns making a conference finals or finals was based on, you can't do anything with those 2 guys. They could, have some traffic cones out there. Those 2 guys are just going to be too hard to guard. And that was wrong. So the CP3 injury, I think it's not just about him specifically. It's about you just took a guy that you really could play out of the picture, and that exacerbates the lack of depth everywhere else. To get to the pick and roll spamming, I think that in a way is going to play into Denver's hands, because I think they should be more than happy to just have Jokic and whoever is guarding Booker just double him, and somebody stay hugged up on Durant wherever he is. And then you say, DeAndre Ayton, you need to beat us in space. And maybe he'll hit like a million 9-foot push shots, right? But he shot 5 free
Don't
throws,
forget the fading hooks.
5 free throws in 148 minutes, 2 for 5 from the foul line for Ayton. He's averaging 10 points a game. Like, if DeAndre Ayton beats you, like that's a shake his hand type of thing. Like that plays the Nuggets could not be happier, because then you don't have to drop, you don't have to do anything. You just get the ball out of Booker's hands. Don't let Durant touch it, and let Ayton be the decision maker or scorer. Like the Suns cannot survive that way. There's no chance, especially with some of the poor shooting they've gotten from the other guys they've tried to throw out there on the wings. So that's a depth issue too. I just think, like, as far as the offseason goes, you got to try to trade Ayton. And the CP3 decision really is a decision, because you have to turn certainly Ayton's money into 2 guys. You just need that to be 2 guys. You can go find a center that's going to average 10 and 8 in a playoff series, which is what Ayton is giving them. I know, like, points and rebounds per game, or, we try to do better than that in our analysis, but like in terms of his actual role and impact, you can go find someone. You can go Kevon Looney, like, just throw him out there. Like, he's not making a fraction. He's making a fraction of what Ayton's going to make next year. And you can just plug and play someone like that, get a wing. So again, I don't know what his value is, but the depth issue affects now. It affects the balance of the series for however much longer it lasts. And it affects the offseason. Like, getting more playable guys around Booker and Durant is just priority 1. And to do that, it might mean no more Chris Paul and no more DeAndre Ayton, because you just need the flexibility, the money, the trade capital to flesh out this roster. Because, like, if you look down the rest of it beyond Booker, Durant, like who do you want back? Like, I guess campaign as a backup, like maybe Jock Landale as a backup. Like, how much worse are they with Jock Landale in there versus Ayton, especially like dollar for dollar? So yeah, it's all connected. The depth, the pick and roll stuff, and the offseason. It's just the issue that we didn't pay enough attention to was depth. That's just it. And usually that's the wrong approach for a playoff series, but it's so profound for Phoenix that it just has become the defining, feature of the series. In addition to Jokic just being God, like, that's the other one.
I have 2 follow-ups that should be mostly quick. Does Indiana this summer, after the full year has passed, and they can do it, Miles Turner for DeAndre Ayton straight up?
I don't think I would do that if I were the Pacers. I think Miles Turner might just be better. Like, or at least, the theory of him makes more sense than Ayton, I think. I wouldn't do that if I'm Indy.
Who has more trade value? DeAndre Ayton at 3 years and $102 million guaranteed, or Jordan Poole at 4 years and $123 million guaranteed?
That's a good one. I'm going to say, you have to say Ayton. As much as I just dumped on him, like, don't you have to say Ayton? Because, like, I think Poole, if you go get Jordan Poole, you're kind of saying he's going to run our offense for a significant portion of the minutes we play. And that's a terrifying thought based on how he played this whole season, because he can't be a role guy. Clearly, he's not interested in being a role player. If you were interested in that, he'd be playing a lot differently right now.
I think that I would probably lean Ayton as well, but it's just he plays a position that has less scarcity. And when you're at that number, right, I think there's a team that might be more willing to bet on Jordan Poole as just the idea of a shot creator.
They're both bad.
It's just like, are they even? You could, if you're going to waive CP3, you could try and do the DeAndre Ayton for Kyrie Irving stuff with Dallas. What team wants DeAndre Ayton? What team is going to be chomping at the bit for DeAndre Ayton? A lot of people like to name Toronto. I don't love that with Siakam. And they now have Jakob Poeltl. Yeah. You also don't have anything to add to an Ayton trade anymore. You have swaps, like a couple swaps if you really want.
No, it's tough. I mean, it's funny. Like, it seemed like the right decision for Phoenix. We're getting way too, it's a transactional stuff for a Suns team that's actually still alive. but like it seemed like the right decision to match just to preserve the asset, except like it's not an asset anymore. he's someone that you might like. I don't know. We should really spend some time trying to figure out what Ayton's trade value is if and when the Suns are eliminated, because that's like I don't know what I would peg it at right now.
This is still skewing transactional, but in Discord, Real Syrup 2219 posed an interesting question. Not that I didn't respect him before this series, but it makes me respect Devin Booker so much more. He's been amazing. I can't even decide on a single superlative. And one of the superlatives was Booker's been so good. It makes you think the Suns would have been better off keeping their picks and defensive pieces instead of trading everything for Kevin Durant.
This is like my Donovan Mitchell, Lauri Markkanen thing, except way better, right? Like,
right.
I mean, well, would Bridges have ever gotten to be this version of Bridges in Phoenix? That's an indictment of Phoenix, but I don't know. Also, wait, hold on. I just had a better thought. The Suns made the finals, and then they won 64 games, and then Chris Paul probably got COVID, and that's why they got smoked at last season's playoffs. Like, the Suns were awesome. They were really good, and they had all these assets too that they don't have anymore. So maybe that's like the correct take. Is that the correct take? Have we flipped all the way already on the Durant trade was bad?
I will say I very clearly thought the Suns, as constructed before, didn't have it. And this rests on two things would have needed to happen. If you still, and I guess it wouldn't have been an issue because CP3 got injured, but like you're always, when you have CP3, you're going to gravitate more towards CP3 and Devin Booker, to where even when they expanded Mikal Bridges' role, it was never anywhere near what it was now in Brooklyn. So I would be super interested to see what does Bridges look like in this series if it had played out the same way and CP3 gets injured, because you have no choice, I would think, other than kind of to go and come close to exploring what he's done in Brooklyn. So it's Kevin Durant.
Right.
And I think I've been banging the drum of when you make these trades, even if you make them in the offseason when they tend to happen, you kind of need, if it's happening after free agency and the draft and whatever, you need some time to reboot like the consolidation of it all, whereas you need time to flesh out that supporting cast. That's going to be their job for the offseason. But given how well Bridges played in Brooklyn and how well Devin Booker is playing now, to the point where Kevin Durant he's been putting up, even by, doesn't really ring the bell in game 5, but like he's been putting up mind-melting numbers, and he's just like been the Suns' second best player by a cosmically distant margin.
I don't know, man. They'd have Cam Johnson too, and all those picks.
And they'd be able to, look, it's a fair discussion to have, because you're out of like big chips to play. It's you have to, like, if you think DeAndre Ayton's this massive trade chip, you have to assume that he has a lot of value to a team. And look, I feel like we're veering too far into postmortem, but this is all stuff, whether the Suns win this series or not, there are just going to be huge questions about how they figure out the rest of this roster inside the limitations that they're operating in.
Yeah. Oh, I can't believe we're already there talking about that.
Well, we can talk about, I told you I was going to have an uncomfortable exercise for us.
Let's do an uncomfortable exercise, and then I'll take us out.
Is Devin Booker, over the course of a full season, regular season and playoffs, one of the 5 best players in the NBA now?
Well, let's figure it out.
Well, I'm not to interrupt again. I'm going to throw NBA players who are, the Ringer does this thing where they rank players throughout the course of the year. And I'm just going to throw some names out here. They're not all in front of Devin Booker, but are these, let's frame it this way. Are these players, or would you rather have these players? Which of these players would you rather have over the course of an entire season, regular season and playoffs, than Devin Booker? LeBron James?
No, I'd rather have Booker.
I'm with you. Ja Morant?
Oh, Booker.
Anthony Davis?
That's the closest one so far, but I guess Booker, just because Davis is going to miss time.
It's Booker. Damian Lillard?
Booker.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander?
I mean Booker, because we haven't seen it yet in the playoffs from SGA. We're watching it with Booker.
Yeah, I think the threat of his pull-up jumper at this point and he's played better even. Jimmy Butler.
Well, Butler is probably no worse than third in postseason MVP right now, right? I would say, I might go Butler because I think he's doing all this. Yeah, I don't know. But plus, Butler's sprained his ankle, so I don't know how we evaluate this last series. Just for purposes of the exercise, so we don't keep saying Booker, I'm going to say Butler by a nose, but like the age thing is a huge factor. So if we're starting next season, like that might be Booker.
I don't mean to simplify this. I'm taking Devin Booker pretty comfortably here.
Can we say who you're not going to take Devin Booker over?
We're getting there. Okay. Kawhi Leonard.
I'd take Booker. Kawhi may never play basketball again. I don't know.
That was mean, but I'm with you. Starting interesting. Jason Tatum.
I'm hesitating because they're like very. I think Booker because he has shown us a capacity to just get more shots than Tatum can get, and I think that matters in the playoffs.
Luka Doncic.
Oh, I'm gonna take Luka. Sorry,
this might be my spiciest take. I'm taking Devin Booker.
Okay.
Kevin Durant.
Booker. He's outplaying him right now.
I'm with Booker. Last unit, Joel Embiid.
I'm going to take Embiid.
I'm going to take Booker. He's easier just to build a team around, I think. Steph Curry.
I'm going to take Curry. You knew that was coming.
I'll take Steph. Giannis.
Ooh, I'm going to take Giannis.
I'm going to take Giannis too.
Jokic.
So Steph, Jokic, Giannis were basically the only consensus players that we were willing to take over Devin Booker.
Yep. That's wild. That's wild. So he's a top 5, basically.
He's inside the top 10. It's pretty definitive to me at this point. I mean, you took AD, you took Butler. The 7 territory, it sounded like an outrageous question, but I did the exercise in my head. And it's an uncomfortable discussion, I think, for some of us, but like it's an actual discussion.
I think there is some element of recency bias at work here because regular season wise, like he might have made an all NBA team. Like he was in the mix. I think if he'd played more games, it would have been harder. But the playoff run, like you can't say a single bad thing about it. He's been the best player in the playoffs. And that's with Jokic probably is going to have something to say about it by the end of this series, but Butler's been awesome. There's been no shortage of incredible performances. Like Steph has been really good by and large, but Booker has just been, if the playoffs matter the most, Booker's been the best in the playoffs. Like it kind of makes it pretty simple in some ways.